with the... All right. He will be delivering a special talk. This is going to be our talk by Mr. Rajan Navani on gaming, the future stack.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here with all of you. And it's, I think when you think of the Republic India Economic Summit, you say where, aspirations of India meet bold ideas. I think this is the place where it's all happening. And today, earlier, when Arnab walked me around this campus and showed me what has been created here, I must compliment both Arnab and Republic for what has been created. It's something truly what India can create, both for India and from India for the world. And I think when you see that, and you see the young people, who are walking around here, it brings about that hope and excitement that we all talk about when we think of India. We always say that, we are the world's youngest country by age, but I think what is most important is how are we going to use that youthful power that we have to be able to shape the future, not only of our country, but of the world at large. And I think, therefore, there is that one India moment. When you think of it, we are the world's fastest growing economy today. We have a youth demography that none others have. And I think it was with the same, expectation that when we were thinking about what would the next 30 years of our group's business be like, we're an 80-year-old business family, I thought that the best way to be able to help shape that was to understand first this Gen Z, the young generation that is not only going to be creating this India, but also going to be the biggest consumers in shaping the future of this India. This is the generation that, will reject a job because you're not allowed hoodies, at work. This is the generation that when we try and understand them or they say, you don't get us. It's a digital always generation. It is an immersive generation. It is a generation that is very hard for someone to be able to point a finger at and say, this is what defines it, right? Everyone's trying to figure that out. And so we set upon this journey to say, we are going to build trust with this generation. We are going to actually play a role in the daily digital life of this generation. And through that platform and that trust, really be able to address both their concerns and their needs of the future. And it was therefore, by chance, that the entire, media entertainment piece is what we hit upon. Because strategically, when we were figuring out, we said the first area that the opportunity we could see was one where, there was a particular way in which this generation was engaging both with content, not only as consumers of content, but also creators of content. And I think that's the big shift and the big opportunity that we saw, about a decade ago. And over these years, we have actually built this entire ecosystem, whether it comes to, finding competitive gamers in esports, creating simulated experiences through video gaming, which is also extending to, education and a lot other areas of artificial not only bringing artificial intelligence, but, using artificial intelligence to drive immersive experiences in augmented, mixed, and virtual reality. And I think that entire journey and experience is what, shaped a large part of what we have been doing over the last decade. And then this entire aspect of the creator economy. And I think for India, if we really look at what's going to drive the future, to me, it sits in these three buckets, right? There is innovation, there is creativity, and then there is entrepreneurship. So if I look at the room here and I see a lot of young faces here, and I say, how many of you want to actually be job creators, and not just job seekers? I'm sure I'm going to see a lot of hands because everybody here wants to be able to create an opportunity for a livelihood that not only concerns themselves, but gives them the freedom, the flexibility, and today with technology, the ability to actually create very successful micro-entrepreneurship or careers that never existed before. So not only are you going to be able to, create enterprises of the future that are going to be in India, from India, for the world, but actually ones that are going to be massively innovative. And in an era of technology, one very interesting facet that always comes out and everyone talks about it is what is it that's going to stay and what's it that's going to go away? So the creativity of a person, of a human being, is probably what's going to stay. So if you see all of human imagination, and I think Bharat and India has driven a large part of that, has come from some source of creativity that exists in one human being. And we see examples of that today. One maverick in the US has created not only satellite ecosystems, new cars, this. One human being can use and unleash creativity to such an extent that you can actually shape what the world will look like. And the ability to therefore be able to tap into that creative energy, that creative source, is something that I think is going to be a big shift that I believe we will have to see as individuals, as we look at the future, not only of India, but of the world. And I truly believe that India has the potential to bring that about. I see many examples. We work with the largest creator ecosystem in India, and whether it's in regional music, whether it is in many other areas. And what we find is the expertise of that creator that gets unlocked really results in the ability to influence others to make decisions. And I think brands and others who want to access that really have to tap into exactly that same source to be able to do it. So I think there's a huge shift that is happening when you look at what that creativity is unlocking, both for people, individuals, brands, the ecosystem, the country. And, with technology, we have been able to see the power of being able to take affordable solutions and many other things into the hands of people. And therein lies the entire aspect of innovation. So for a country like India, if we want to move from a developing country to the, developed and Viksit Bharat of 2047, and we want to do it through an innovation journey, there will be some non-negotiables of that journey, because never in the history of mankind has a democratically elected country of 1.4 billion people moved from being a developing to a developed country. And when we think of what are those non-negotiables, really we can tap into many aspects, but I think key things that will stand out is how do we include everybody into that process. Again, the role of technology and creativity to make that happen. How do we create solutions that are affordable and consumable by all? And the good part about the entire creator economy is that not only are the creators, the producers of whether it's content or solutions and actually deriving livelihoods from that, or employees of new age companies or even traditional companies, but they are also going to be the consumers. So it's a very strong 360-degree kind of engagement with them that will help shape enterprises, help shape countries, governments, and a collaborative approach to making that happen, to me, is what will help create that Viksit Bharat that we all talk about, the ones that we dream about, the ones that we imagine, and ones that we can continue to reimagine in the future. So to me, when I think of the future of India and I think of what is it that is going to be, taking India there, I think this entire generation of Gen Zs, the next generation of Gen Alphas, again, who have a very different behavioral pattern compared to Gen Zs, and the Gen Betas that are being born in 2025 are going to shape this India very differently. The Gen Alpha plays that we have today, we see the concerns that, 14 and 15-year-olds have today for causes that are of global issues. And you will not imagine, many of you will have examples at your own homes and in own companies and in your own areas, but you will be able to understand and appreciate that, because that will be a part of their DNA as they continue to grow. And with Gen Beta kids, we are hoping that India as a country today can create a generation that will not only shape that future, but will also inherit it, and therefore create that India which we all, would like to see and imagine growing into the future. For the Gen Beta, we have a very interesting 1,000-day program that starts from the time when someone is pregnant to the first 1,000 days of a child, right? The ability, and today science is showing how it can actually cross-pollinate and create very, very unique neural networks that will help shape that generation. So with the advancement of technology, we are going to see two things happen. There's going to be the appreciation for diversity and creativity, but also the convergence of many common new things that we find that will shape society. And I think, when we talk of India strengthening its economic power, strengthening its economic capacity, both in India and in the context of the world, these are the different aspects that we will, have to understand, appreciate, and collaboratively work to unlock in the near future. I know they wanted me to open this up and make this interactive with each one of you or whoever would like to have a discussion. So we'll move into that section of this conversation and maybe have someone, who wants to ask a question, really raise that right now. Thank you.
Hi. That was loud. Hello. Yeah. So you were talking about Gen Alpha, Gen Beta, Gen Z. We, as millennials, we are young managers. There is a Gen Z, which is after the advent of AI and technology, the Gen Z has changed completely. That's definitely a generation gap. But how do you think, as you mentioned, for Gen Beta, you already have a program. And Gen Beta started in 2025, and you already have a program which you're saying which is 1,000 days. So how do you see the advent of this technology changing the mindset of these people, which is very difficult to train humanly? To be very honest, there's a huge gap between the technology, there's a huge gap between their mindsets, there's a huge gap everywhere. So do you think that technology can fill that gap? Over to you. Thank you.
When you talk of technologies, we can talk of multiple technologies that, impact you and affect you in various ways. But the world, and today we are all talking of artificial intelligence, and I think you referred, to that. So today at least our strong belief is that each of these generations, right, whether it is the millennials or the Gen X, and the duration of that generation is not equidistant to 15 years as everyone is talking, because generations are now compressing a lot faster. But that also means that there is an evolutionary process of the human being that is happening at a much different pace, and we see that everywhere. Now that part is going to continue. Right? I think what is in control, especially when it comes to India or enterprises that want to serve India, for the future, is the environment that you're able to create, for that generation. And I think when we look at ourselves as ecosystem creators for a particular generation. And what Gen Zs particularly we found different is that their interests are in communities. Right? So there is a community that is interested, say, for example, in mindfulness, right? Or a community that is interested in a particular video game, or a community that is interested in following one particular young creator, right? And for us, each of those communities, if they're about 100 million people, right, or at least grow to that, is how we enter into those communities. And we either create the IPs or the reasons for which those communities exist, or then we address those communities and serve their needs, right? So it's not like one large 2 billion people community, which was, I think, of the internet generation. So the AI generation is probably going to reduce that even further, right? So today what you need and what someone sitting next to you needs are going to be two very different things. And how do you actually, manage those multiple interests through the day? So as Jet Synthesis, we said we will play a key role in your daily digital life. At 5 a.m. in the morning, you'll make an affirmation, I won't get angry today, and we'll handhold you through that. But you're listening to some music in regional, you're playing a video game somewhere, maybe you're deriving your livelihood as an athlete, as an esports athlete for the country, and going to go and win an Olympic medal, because that's happening in the digital world with esports. We've got an Olympics now, which is going to get created. So you're going to find very different new opportunities that will come up for Gen Zs and Gen Alphas and Gen Betas, right? What one can create is the right environment to help each of those generations, each individual, unlock the best version of themselves. That's how we really think of our business, and I think this is how India as a country should be thinking, and probably the world, because if each individual can live up to their true potential, then everything works, fairly well, because you will have, families, you will have, smaller enterprises, you will have, everyone actually being lifted up, and especially for a Viksit Bharat, I think that is what we want to see, India achieve.
It was a great speech, sir. Pleasure to hear you first. And what came in mind, given that I fall in the Gen Z category, is that what's the biggest wow factor when it comes to our generation that you see? And a lesson that we could learn from the ones that have brought Bharat where it stands now. Over to you, sir.
That is a question I should be asking you, right? But, for me, the wow factor is in every moment, every interaction with a Gen Z, right? I mean, I'm telling you, because we learn and we invest, I think over-invest in understanding this generation, because the starting point of the generation is that you don't get us, right? You don't understand us, right? I think when we were growing up, we never felt that. You felt a rebellion at some point in your life, at some age, everyone feels that. But here, in every Gen Z that I interact, and that is the beauty, right? You want to change the status quo. Right, you come with no baggage and the youthful ability to be able to do that, right? Every revolution in the world, for positive change started with 5 people coming together, 10 people coming together. Today you have a whole generation of people who are willing to stand for their causes, a very transparent generation. I mean, with social media, everybody lives their lives in under public scrutiny, right? So I think it's a very different ingredient in this generation. And how do we as a country really leverage that? Because we are, the largest rising generation in the world. I mean, in the US, I chair the India version of the Aspen Ananta Center, and there's a huge grant given by the Bezos family, about $200 million to address values with the rising generation. My question is, where is the largest rising generation in the world? Right? We were having a discussion on the US and India. The largest rising generation is sitting here in this country. If we build the right values, we are able to unlock the true power in each one of that rising generation. Nothing can stop India from achieving its true potential. You add to that what we have as legacy, as a rich history. And today, as I was talking earlier, the tapping into that source of your ultimate creative potential, or, is linked to a huge concept called consciousness. And I was in Boston at MIT, and MIT is saying, the latest thing from the neuroscience department is consciousness, do we understand it, right? So there is this large Bharat knowledge heritage that we have, right, which was there. And today science is coming to a conclusion, and, quantum is playing a large role to say that, this is how the human operates, this is how, the physiology of everything that is a state of matter comes from something that is non-physical, which is in a state of consciousness, and one which can unlock massive creative potential in each person. It's huge, right? When we think of that, I can't think of a better country than India to be able to position itself on the stage of global leadership. And that's the excitement that I think each one of you as Gen Z should see. That's the wow factor.
Actually, my question was, of course, based on what you spoke just now. There's no doubt that Indian heritage is going to play a big role in making the youth of India stand out when it comes to the world stage. What is your prescription for that? How can that be implemented? Thank you.
The beauty is there is no prescription. Because I'll tell you why. If you look at artificial intelligence today, artificial intelligence, especially when you look at generative, right? There are 2 forms. We've dealt with machine learning, we've dealt with structured data, and we've been able to create very, predictable, good outcomes, and that has created brilliant efficiency, etc. But when you have, unstructured data, when you have variables that you have never understood, how they will affect and impact and make a change, right? It creates a very different level of personalization that can be done today than ever before, right? So the point is, what is right for you is not right for someone else, right? So the moment you get into one form of a, structured thing for all, and that's what I was mentioning. For a Gen Z, we brought it down to smaller communities and interests, which are still significant, right? But as we are going forward, if you ask me, to unlock that true potential, right, we have to be able to understand that person far better. And this applies not only for those who are delivering, some services to them, but to see how they can participate in the nation's development. Each person has a different capacity to do things for themselves, do things for your family, do things for your nation, do things with your friends, and do things for what you work. I mean, that is your life, right? If you are able to bring that about. So the prescription, if at all, is to be able to stir the imagination of young people, is to get people excited and create platforms that help them get and unlock their true potential better. To help that generation, work around, as I said, a set of non-negotiables which are true for India, that are true for the world today, right? Today, whether it is, it's very easy to say, we stand for peace and joy and love and prosperity, right? But each of those words mean a lot. And how do you actually live that to be able to create a world that is going to see that, right? So I think there are many aspects of that, and each platform can take up one of these areas and kind of, create an open platform for people to come and be able to, explore that. But a prescriptive form for this generation and for this India change would actually be, not the right thing to do. It's a framework that one can create within which we can see a lot of change happen.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. A very good evening. So I wanted to ask, what gives a legacy industrialist the confidence to bet on the digital future, like how you have done through your subsidiary Jet Synthesis?
When we were looking at our manufacturing businesses, and we were seeing that, okay, we've allocated capital, we've put a lot of infrastructure to be able to create products, for our consumers. The first thing I started to see that the only, expense item that kept going up was marketing, which clearly meant that, we are not able to, to serve our consumers correctly because, they probably moved on and we are forcing them to buy our products, right? And from there, creating more lines as Jetline to Jet Synthesis was to synthesize in near real time and deliver to a person in an asset-light model what they truly need. And hopefully, as we are now beginning to move into the next phase, predict what they're going to need, from today's time. And I think that was the shift. That was the shift that the power of digital is going to shape the future of each individual in some shape and form. Enterprises, governments, everything you see, whether everyone has a stakeholder, right? So today for a government, a citizen is a stakeholder. And we've seen the massive transformation that, say, Aadhaar or UPI has done for a country like India. So in every area you are going to see this big shift happen, that technology, digital, and now increasingly with AI personalization is going to be able to make that shift happen. We decided about a decade ago to get into that space, and we believe that, that shift was very deliberate. It is very different because everything changes. It's not just what you deliver, but it's also how you deliver, how you monetize, how do you create business models that survive and thrive in a new age economy. And we are seeing so many great examples of companies in India that started a decade ago. There's a surge of IPOs, right? And all of them have achieved some scale. Some of them will say we are disruptors, but what have you disrupted? You've disrupted a process, you've disrupted a business model, and you're being able to serve a consumer sharper and better and faster. In 15 minutes you can get anything you want, you will move there, right? The fact that you are making that choice today means that anything else I was doing to try and get that product to you is not going to work, right? So I think this opportunity is what is going to drive, not only today, but I think increasingly going to drive the future. And the companies who get that, and who get that right, will make that shift. So if we see the $1 trillion market cap companies that we talk about in the US today came off the internet generation, right? Whether you see Amazon, you see Facebook, Meta, you see all the countries, because internet came in, they were able to do it. Now, with AI coming in, and if it is as big a revolution as the internet, what is going to drive the future companies in 10 years from today? That's what you should be asking yourselves, especially those who want to become entrepreneurs, and really, go out there and build that with the right set of non-negotiables for a country like India. And the India playbook is going to play out for the world, if not today, in the future, definitely for you.
Hello, sir. Talking about Gen Z, some people say that ambition is taking a back seat and work-life balance is becoming a priority. What do you have to say on that?
Again, as I said, it's different for different people, but ambition is always a product of what you want to do, what you want to be, and how you will make it happen actually comes through your actions, right? And your efforts. So you have an ambition, and then you have an effort to make that ambition, to realize that ambition. So for those whose work and life and play are integrated, you'll find those crazy entrepreneurs who will work 20 hours a day, and you have one here at Republic. And I've seen that, who'll sleep in the studios and make it happen because you have that craze to be able to make that change happen in the world. The urgency to do things, is a very different kind of DNA, where your work, your life, your play, everything is immersed. So from one extreme like that to those who view it as a balance, because then you're creating, a separate time for work, separate time for play, separate time for your ambition. But I think each person, again, will build it differently. What makes one different from the other is how you have built your inner self. And therefore, I go back to there has never been a greater need than now for every individual to look inwards. Right? As I said, we created a Think Right platform because everything our education taught us is what you should say and do. Don't hit someone, or don't speak a lie. But the source of that is thought. I'm hitting someone because I'm getting angry. So if I make an affirmation in the morning, I won't get angry today, and I handhold you through the day, and you control that, you will obviously be a more productive person, and you will be able to, again, unlock that creativity from that source of ultimate potential that you have, right? And I think if you're not taking care of your inside today, it's going to be very hard because you're only managing situations, and then you want to balance your situations in life. But when you have that inner strength, and therefore we say from think right, to eat right, to move right, to sleep right, right life, right? If you can get that balance, and you can look into a phone, like you look at Google for your external world, we've created Right Life, where you look into a phone and you're able to understand yourself better. 72 parameters, what you should do now. And if you're in that zone, in that now moment, in that position, like right now I'm talking to you, I'm here with you discussing just this point, right? And you can move in that ability, or have that ability to do that, you will definitely be able to achieve a lot more. And you will see that life, work, balance, all in some harmonious way, start working together. And that's what we need. We need to create a generation of happy people. We need to create a generation of balanced people. We need to create a generation that is productive, not only for themselves, their families, but for the country. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Navani, for that very, very engaging talk. And I think all our youngsters, youngsters from the crowd are really enlightened. And there are so many more questions, I think, but